This time on Between the Wheels.
That's not just a regular Challenger. There's something to it.
What fun is a muscle car without a manual transmission? I mean, really? A lot of money spent on cars, you know, and don't want to go there because the wife will have an opinion on it.
Bought it new in 1970.
Those were the best days of our lives, I think.
17 years old when I bought that car.
Ran on the street. I went there, made noise, and went home.
Yeah, that's what it feels like in a 9-second car.
I got it up on jack stands and I cried.
Most people would look at it and say, it's a basket case, you can't fix that.
I mean, we didn't have any safety checks and none of this bullshit now. I mean, everybody just drove a car, you know.
At 40 miles an hour, if you're gonna crash in this thing, you're friggin' dead.
I spent probably 16-hour days. I would end up sleeping in the body shop in a car.
It's gonna be a lot of work, and she said, who cares? It wasn't that we had money falling out of our pockets. We made the car happen because of the desire to restore the car.
So traditionally on this show, we've done a lot of classic muscle cars. We're talking about mid-60s to early 70s, kind of the golden era of muscle cars. But what we got here today, we're going all the way to 2010 for something much more modern with our good friend Wolfgang here. How you doing, Wolfgang?
I'm doing really well.
It's nice to see you again. We've had you on here before with your Mustang, your GT500 last year, and now we're doing this thing. I've been dying to do this car because I'm not really a newer car type person, but when I heard what's under the hood and what you got going on here, I had to do this car. So this is kind of a special episode, so we really wanted to do it. What am I looking at here?
Well, you're looking at a 2010 Dodge Challenger SRT8 in plum crazy purple. This car, when it came from the factory, everything on the outside here is factory. Like, these are the factory stripes that came with it. It came with a 6.1 liter HEMI, and this one has a 6-speed Tremec transmission. So it's a manual car. It came with the sunroof. It's a full optioned car. It has every option that was available in 2010 on the Challengers.
Very cool.
So there's nothing that's been left out except for a couple of bugs spots here, but those are, you know, part of driving it, right? We got to use our cars.
That's right. And use this car, you're not afraid to bring it to car shows, daily drive it if you need to. So you're really getting the most out of this car. And it's kind of funny because we're talking about cars and this being actually the newest car that's been on the show. But 2010 is a long time ago. We're talking 14 years.
Oh,
this is a classic,
absolutely,
basically.
absolutely.
Now, when we're talking about muscle cars, obviously back in the day, it's like whenever they had muscle cars come out, there were so many different ones to choose from. It's almost like every company made 3 or 4 different awesome muscle cars. But obviously, 2010, it's just not the case. Yes, we had the Camaro, we still have the Corvette and whatnot, a few other cars, but I think there was nothing really like the Challenger. When the Challenger came out, I think it really caught everybody's eye. What is it that made the Challenger so unique and it caught so much attention? Because now there's a huge following on this vehicle. Like, they did a great job on this. What is it that really caught people's eye, you think?
Well, I think originally it was the styling, and now it's the horsepower. But originally what caught my eye was the styling. I mean, the styling on this is just phenomenal. Back in the day, a friend of mine had a plum crazy purple 71 Roadrunner, and I've always been a Mopar person. I've had lots of Mopars. I have lots of Mopars today. I mean, I've owned Fords and Chevys too. I've always been an American muscle car person. A lot of money spent on cars, you know, and don't want to go there because the wife will have an opinion on it.
That's classic.
But I've always liked plum crazy purple. Right. And I've always wanted, it had to be a manual transmission car and it had to be an SRT8. I wasn't going to buy an RT and I wasn't going to buy an automatic. What's
the difference between those two?
Well, the RT is a 5.7. Back in 2010, you could only get the 6.1 HEMI and the 5.7. And then 2011, they dropped the 6.1 and made a 6.4. So, and then I had to have the Tremec 6-speed because what fun is a muscle car without a manual transmission? I mean, really?
No, I have to agree with that. Well, even
I mean, they're faster on the quarter mile with an automatic,
this is a totally different beast than an old school muscle car. Now, you came from the era of the classic muscle cars.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
What made you say, I'm going to get a modern one? Because usually the old school guys stay with old school, whereas here you got something much more modern. What made you do that switch? Because that's a big change to make.
I like air conditioning, and I like cruise control, and I like a kick-ass stereo.
Nice.
You know, and I'm getting older, you know, and it's much more fun to get in, turn the key, and drive them, or in this case, push the button and drive them, instead of being on the side of the road and wrenching on them.
Right, the whole carbureted versus fuel injection, obviously.
Yeah.
But you still kind of got that classic look with a modern flair.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I liked about this car. That's why I bought this car, and that's why I'm going to keep this car for probably a long, long time. I just really like this car a lot. The styling on it, the color of it, the provenance, everything on it. It's just great.
Now, this isn't just your standard Challenger. Obviously, it's a 426 HEMI now, and we're going to be talking about the engine in a second. But before we get into the engine, one thing I want to talk about is the Petty Challenger itself. What is the difference between a Petty Challenger and a regular Challenger based on the options you see on the outside? You know, the stickers, the decals.
So in 2016, I went with a friend of mine down to North Carolina. I went around to all of the different NASCAR shops because we wanted to make it a holiday. And, you know, Rick Hendricks and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kyle Petty and all of the different places, Kyle Busch's place, Jack Roush's, all the different NASCAR shops. And one of the things that I really liked was the way they were doing performance builds at Petty's Garage in Randleman, North Carolina. I was just so impressed. So I ended up spending a lot of money on parts there from Petty's Garage to put on this Challenger. And then in 2019, I decided that I was going to, with the wife's permission and encouragement, to take the car down there and let them do a build on it.
So wow, so it was actually your wife that suggested to do the Petty Challenger?
Well, I've been...
That's rare, I'm just gonna say that right now. Usually it's the other way around. They're like, don't do it, you know, we can go on vacation or something, retire early.
Like, I talked about it because I wanted the provenance. Like with the Shelby Mustangs, you have Carroll Shelby provenance. So I wanted to keep this car for a long time. And so in order to keep the value on it, you have to put some provenance on it. And so the only way to do that is to have somebody that's famous build the car for you. So that was, you know, and I was impressed with the work that they do there. So in 2019, I put the car in my trailer and I went down to Petty's Garage. I booked the appointment. We made the estimate and stuff for the work, and they did all of the stuff that needs to go with a car that's got high performance. So they did the suspension, new sway bars, they put on coilovers that are adjustable, 30-point adjustable. They put on strut tower braces, they put on urethane bushings. So in addition to the engine and the suspension, they also did some cosmetic things.
Yeah, and then there's no lack of, I guess, details here to show that it's a Petty. You know, his name is everywhere, and it's pretty cool to see this, and it makes it kind of unique. Obviously, when you see this go by, people that know the car will be like, that's not just a regular Challenger. There's something to it.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of work went into it. At the same time, there were some other things done. Like, I heard this thing fire up. There's no way that's the stock exhaust system.
No,
what do we got under there?
No, well, what we have is we have Koch's long tube headers with Koch's green catalytic converters. Green meaning that they're environmentally friendly, and then we have a 3-inch MagnaFlow exhaust all the way to the back with stock tips. I mean, one of the things that I talked about with Petty's Garage when we did the estimate on the car is I wanted the car to look stock, because in the old days with muscle cars, it was all about the go, it wasn't about the show. Yes, they had nice paint, yes, they had maybe a few stripes on them, but they weren't all decked out and things like that. So I wanted this to look bone stock, so that's why we have the stock tips on it. We still have the stock wheels on it and other things that make it look like it's just a normal Challenger until you open the hood and you see what the car is about. Yeah, the other thing that they did is they put a little a stripe on the back with Petty's Garage logo, which was something that I asked for. It's a fun car. There's some other things that I did. I got them to put on the Mr. Norm's pistol grip shifter, and then I also got the shift linkage upgraded. So it's a complete thing. The only thing I didn't need to do was the brakes, because the brakes are already Brembo brakes on it, which are good enough from Dodge, you know.
And that steering wheel, I haven't seen that in any Challengers. That's definitely not the stock steering wheel.
No, that steering wheel, believe it or not, comes from the Ukraine. The company's name is Redline, and so Redline made me a new steering wheel with the Petty's Garage colors on it, and with the Alcantara and the leather on it, and it's got the flat bottom on it and stuff. So, and then there's the other thing that Petty's Garage did is that they did all the gauges. So the gauges, they tell me the boost, they tell me the air-fuel ratio, they tell me the exhaust gas temperature, they tell me the oil pressure, they tell me the water temperature, and they tell me the intercooler temperature. Because we had to add an intercooler on it when we put a supercharger on it. So there's all the gauges that they put in, and then Richard Petty himself signed the car on the dash and on the supercharger and on the tachometer, on the gauges he signed it. And then his crew chief, which was Dale Inman, also signed the dash. And then in May of 2020 they had finished the car.
Wow.
And then just as I'm getting ready to go down and pick the car up, because I had left my trailer down there with the car, Mr. Trudeau closed the borders. So the car ended up staying down there for another year and a half until October of 2021, when I finally got to pick up the car. So I brought the car back. Yeah, so they were nice. They stored the car for me for free. I allowed them to use the car for their promotions, for shows and stuff that they did, Petty's Garage. They loved the car. It's a car with provenance now. And then in the end, they put a data plate on the header panel where the radiator is attached to show that this car was a unique car and it's a Petty build.
Well, but what really sets this thing apart is the engine, is the power plant. We got to crack the hood open. Let's take a look what's under there.
Okay.
And talk about that.
We'll do that. And what makes this car different is the work that Petty's Garage has done on the car. They took the original power plant out and they bored it and they stroked it. It was a 6.1 HEMI and now it's a 426 HEMI. And they put on a supercharger. So first thing we're looking at is we're looking at some of the Petty's Garage unique items that they put on the car. So instead of having the ram's horn here, we have the Petty's Garage emblem here. The same down here, we have Dodge by Petty. So that's unique to the Petty cars. Nobody else has that. And then underneath here, you can see what they've done in the engine compartment. So first off, we have the supercharger, which is by Whipple. It's a Whipple supercharger. It's a 2.9 liter supercharger, and that's on top of the 426 HEMI that they built out of the original 6.1 block. So it's still the numbers matching block to the car. You know, you can see here the Petty strut tower brace here, which is in plum crazy purple. You can see the Petty's coolant canister, which is aluminum. And then there's various aluminum things that I put on. So this here is 100 millimeter throttle body from Arrington Engines. And then here we've got the coil pack covers from Petty's Garage. And they have the signature of the person who built the car, which was Fred Lankford. He's the one that built the motor. And then up here we have the signatures I was talking about when we took this car down to Brampton Assembly last year. The production manager and the president of the union, the Unifor union, signed the car. So this car has been down to where it was built, and it's been down to North Carolina where they built the engine, the powertrain, and all of the suspension and all of the aesthetic stuff on it. So when the car was stock, it came with 425 horsepower at the crank with the 6-speed Tremec transmission. And so now it has 743 horsepower and 740 pounds-feet of torque at the back wheels.
Wow. At the wheels.
At the wheels. So it's not at the crank, it's at the back wheels. Wow. Oh yeah, the other thing I forgot to talk about here is the The Petty's Garage 30 position adjustable coilovers, which I have here, which can go from firm, super firm for racing to soft for everyday driving.
That's really cool that you can actually adjust them from the top here rather than having to go underneath with, you know, screwdrivers and a wrench. I have seen adjustable ones, but you have to do all from below. So this is the first time I've seen like
these
this.
just click back and forth, eh?
Yeah, and in the trunk you have the same thing. You can adjust them from inside the trunk.
That's right. There's an intercooler that's put here, so that we have the air charge that's compressed by the supercharger is cooled, so we don't have too high an intake air temperature. We have here the Petty's Garage catch can for catching any oil when you're supercharging. It tends to blow some oil past in the PCV. So we have the catch can from Petty's Garage.
That's pretty cool. This looks like a work of art. And from what you're saying, it sounds like an absolute monster on the road, which is really, really cool. And it's a really clean engine. You've done a good job of also keeping it very presentable, because I know you go to a lot of car shows. It looks great.
Thank you.
And this is very cool. This is definitely a one-of-a-kind car in this area for sure.
Oh, but they'll build anything for anybody. But
for the right price.
For the right price. But I would say they do about 10 Challengers per year to this level.
Wow, that's pretty cool, and to have it signed by Richard Petty himself right there.
Yeah,
that's
so
really
this
cool.
is like this is Richard Petty's signature, and that's Fred Langford who built the motor.
Piece of history, man. This is awesome. It's really a throwback to the old days, the old pistol grip shifter.
Yeah.
60s and 70s, that's pretty cool.
I really like it a lot. It just fits, it just works.
Very streetable car in terms of
is.
For how powerful this is. Like, it's not loud, it's not obnoxious, it's very comfortable.
Well.
And it's obviously a performance orientated vehicle. Now when they changed the suspension, what does it change? Because you had both suspensions, right?
Yeah, so the main reason, so it originally came with an SRT suspension which had Bilstein shocks on it. So I wanted the coilovers because then I could adjust the height of the car to where I wanted it without having a fixed rate. Like if I wanted to lower it, I'd have to buy Eibach aftermarket springs, and then I'd have to buy another set of Bilstein shocks.
Okay.
And I have to live with what they give me as a lowered ride height. But with coilovers, you can adjust that to whatever you want.
Right.
So it's not something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to adjust this car to what I wanted it to be for ride height, so it looks cool, right?
So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of ride height. Now, in terms of performance, what are the differences?
Well, because they're 30-point adjustable, if I want to go road racing, I can make them really hard. Or if I'm on the city streets, which I am now, I have them set for really soft. So it actually rides softer than the original SRT suspension.
Oh, cool. So you can really have a lot of flexibility in terms of your ride quality. Like you said, you're not married to a certain setting. You're like, long distance, let's put it on, the soft. But if you're on racing, you're putting it on stiff, and you got more traction, and you have obviously much more control of the vehicle. But it's not going to be comfortable.
No. The other thing is it works together with all of the other things that Petty's Garage did. I mean, they put on urethane bushings in the back, on the back cradle, so that there's no flex. They put in a stiffer sway bar, which is a 3-point adjustable. I can adjust that to whatever I want.
Nice.
So the coilovers work together with that, along with the strut tower braces. So the car is very stiff. It, and I'm sure that the subframe connectors add something also.
Well, that amount of horsepower and torque, that is crazy. Like, you're twisting the car at that point. So obviously all these improvements had to make the car perform better.
It did. So so the suspension all works together, right?
Oh man, yeah, that's next level, man. That is a crazy amount of torque. Like, you can't even move when you
No.
Get it there.
If you have a $100 bill, you can put it on the dash.
There's no way you'll touch it though. Holy crap, dude. That's, you know, I've been in your GT500, but this is next level. This is
well, yeah, because it's got an independent suspension, which means it sits nicer and it grabs the traction better.
Yeah, look at like handling, like you're going pretty quick there. You just flew around that guy, no problem, no swaying whatsoever. Like I've been in a lot of these old cars, right? I'm doing a season primarily on big block cars, factory from the 60s and 70s. When they do a turn like that, you feel like you're gonna go over. There's none of that.
Oh yeah.
You could fly this thing around like no problem.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
The only thing you have to make sure is that you turn off the traction control. Otherwise, it wants to put on the brakes because it thinks you're slipping.
Right, very cool. You really do have ultimate control of this vehicle right now.
It is.
It's a lot of power, and mind you, it's a lot of responsibility to have that much power. You got to know what you're doing, and that's why you see so many of these guys crashing these vehicles. But you know what you're doing here.
But it's so easy to drive,
right?
You know.
Yeah, I feel like anybody can get in and drive this. Like,
it's easy to, as long as you know how to shift.
Yeah.
You know, and you watch the red line and stuff. You're okay. You know.
That's cool. Well, Wolfgang, this is pretty cool, man. I'm pretty impressed with this car. Like, I'm not a new car guy, but I gotta say, I really am impressed with this. This is pretty cool.
Back in the day, I used to own a 1970 Cougar Eliminator.
Beautiful.
And this car, the dash layout really reminds me of that because it used to have the circular gauges like this one does, the old Challenger gauges, right?
Very cool.
Not the new ones. In 2015, they remodeled the dash, but this is the old, you know, from 2008 to 2014 dash, right?
Nice.
So it reminds me of my 70 Cougar Eliminator that I had back in the day, and that's, you know, it was the only difference was it had a Hurst T-handle shifter, not a pistol grip shifter. So
awesome, dude. Really fun car.
It gets really loud, eh?
Oh yeah.
If I just open it, put it into boost, right? And that's just part throttle.
Oh yeah. You're just feathering it, really.
Yeah.
Man, it gets up there quick though, even with marginally pressing it.
Yeah.
It's so soft too with the suspension you got here. Like, this is a pretty rough road we're on right now, and I'm not feeling anything. So your control is pretty impressive right now.
Well, yeah, I have it on the softest setting because I drive it to car shows, right? I do not race this car. I do not quarter mile the car. I don't need to. I don't care how fast it is. Quarter mile.
No problem, man. I don't blame you. This is pretty cool, though. You get to drive it. You get to have fun without driving like an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously you would never do that on the road anyway. So this is the way to go for sure. Well, while we're parked and we're in a safe area, I think it's worth giving you your hat for being on the show. So you have the other one now. You got a Subdivision on, just like me, right?
Oh, but you know what?
Yeah.
You know what we forgot to do with the other one?
What's that?
Is we forgot to get you to sign it. You have to sign it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'll have to do that later on.
Oh, well, I have a pen here somewhere.
Oh, no kidding. That's cool. You get Richard Petty sign this car. You want me to sign the hat? That's pretty cool. Yeah. It's an honor in a way.
Well, there you go. You got 2 pens.
Pretty cool. I'll sign it on the inside so it doesn't ruin the hat for you.
No, sign it on the front.
You sure?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna.
You're famous.
Oh wow. Okay, it's just this is gonna go straight to my ego. I'm telling you. I'll probably do not sign as nice as Richard Petty, as this is the first time I've ever done a signature. But there it is.
Oh, but signatures are important.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome.
Cheers, it was great. This was an awesome time. You know, what a cool
Hey, cool.
Very cool. We'll see you guys next time, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future.
Okay. Yeah, we have a couple more cars, eh?
We do. I'm not going to tell you what they are. We'll see in the future. Going to have to keep watching.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Next time on Between the Wheels.
Your environment dictates who you turn out to be. In this case, I grew up with a lot of guys around my neighborhood who had hot rod cars. So when I originally built it, I built it like some people do, with the ultimate paint job and everything that you could possibly do. I went to start it up. All hell broke loose. Get over here with the camera, because I'm not going to have a car left, do it.